Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this video on the short report assignment that you all have due shortly. The reason why I've put together this video is just to give you some guidance on how to do the assignment and to help you along your way. So let's get started. So the first things first that we need to deal with is at what point should you be watching this video. I know there's going to be a link showing up on Waddle, and some of you may go straight to this video and start watching. But actually there's a number of things you should do before you start watching this video, and that will save you time and help you use your time more efficiently. So the first thing you need to do is read the course outline. Read the course outline specifically with regard to this assignment. That sets you up for the whole overall picture of what this assignment's about, what you're expected to do, and how much it's worth. After that, what I would advise you to do is either to read your lecture notes if you've attended, just to give you a reminder of what are the key things in each topic that you learnt, or if you haven't attended the lectures and if you haven't listened to them, then go back and watch the lectures on Echo 360. That's really important before you get to the assignment video, and I'll explain why in a few seconds. Once you've done that, go and watch the assignment video. So in Wattle, under the short reports area, there's a link to watch a video. Go and watch that video. Now the reason why I tell you to go and read your lecture notes or watch the Echo 360 before you do that is if you watch that video before you do that, then you don't know exactly what you're looking for. This is a communication assignment about communication issues. If you've looked at your lecture notes or watched the lectures, then at least in your mind there's a few things that might pop up as you watch the video. If you don't do that, then you're just watching the video without any thought about some of the communication issues and ideas that we've talked about throughout this subject. You may need to go, even if you've read your notes and watched the lectures on Echo 360, and then you go and watch the assignment video, you may need to go back and read your notes again. In fact, you probably would, and you may need to watch the assignment video several times as well. Once you've done that, look at the additional instructions on Wattle. So on Wattle, there is a Word document, and that Word document gives you additional instructions. I'm just going to push this onto the screen here now. This is the Word document. It sets forth, it gives you a general guide. What's the word count? 1,600 words which includes everything apart from a few things. Gives you a basic structure to follow if you want, and then gives you the details of the survey from that was talked about in the video. So go and have a look at that additional instruction area, and then come and watch this video that you're now watching. Okay, so in talking about the content of this particular video that you're watching now, I'm going to assume that you've done all those things. If you haven't, go and do that now. Come back to this video afterwards. Otherwise, again, as you're watching this video, you probably have a whole heap of questions, and they've already been answered through those other documents or those other areas. I'm also telling you now, or recommending that you do that, because if you ask your tutors a question, for example, what's the word count, what does the word count include, then they're going to just say, look, you haven't done what you're supposed to do. It's that information is in, the slides, it's in the course outline, or it's in one of those things. You haven't done that, go and do that. And that's just wasting time because you're waiting for them to answer. They take time to answer. And that's just wasting your time, wasting their time. From a communication perspective, remember communication being the transfer and understanding meaning, you're also communicating to them you haven't done your work. You haven't done the preparation work that you should have done. And remember, because we're using this, you should be using this subject as practice for your real work career. Imagine if you did that in real life, you'd be telling your manager that you're not a very good worker because you're not doing what you've been told to do beforehand. Okay, so I'm going to assume, as I said, you've read the course outline, you've gone through your lecture notes, or you watched the lecture videos, you watched the assignment video, you looked at the additional instructions, and then you're now coming back to this video. So, the other thing I want to mention now, and it's an important thing, I do want to talk about plagiarism and Turnitin. So, the first thing I want to say is please, please, please make sure you do not copy work from other students. You don't copy work from other sources like the internet or things like that. If you do use somebody else's work, then please, please, please make sure you reference it. Okay, I know you know all of this, but this is a reminder and also a warning of the same time. Don't do it. If you do it, you're going to get called in. You're going to have to answer some difficult questions. You will probably get a penalty that can range anywhere from small penalties of 50% of your mark, 100% of your mark. If it's, if it's a reckless case or an obvious case, it could be escalated further. You could fail the course. You could have something recorded on your academic transcript, that you've engaged in academic misconduct or plagiarism. You could even be asked to leave the uni in an extreme case. Please, please, please do not do this. Okay, I have already caught a number of students from the first assignment on this, and they've already had to answer questions from not just me, but from people above me who are wondering whether the student should still be doing this course or even be in this university. So please do not do this. Connected to that, don't lend your assignment to other people because when they're if they're rushed and for time, they might just decide to copy a few of your sentences, and then not only do they get in trouble, but you will get in trouble, because when we see the assignment, we don't know who's copying who, right? They may actually submit their assignment first, and then you submit your assignment second, and then it looks like you are copying them, and so it looks like you'll probably at least get the harsher questions than they will to start with. And again, you're the innocent party in that case. So please do not lend your assignment to other people. Also, don't really look at assignments from the past. The assignments change every semester, and we, as the markers, know exactly what the changes are. So when we see certain things in your assignment, we know, hey, we didn't ask you for that this assignment, or we changed that in this assignment this year. The fact that you're doing that shows us that you've actually copied something from somebody else in the past. And again, this automatically raises flags, and we then will call you in and ask you some difficult questions, which you don't really want to have to answer. So please don't look at other previous people's assignments. Don't lend your assignments to other people doing this course. Not even just to look at to see what it looks like, because as I said, it tempts them to copy your work, and then that creates problems. And as I said before, make sure you reference correctly. So again, in this course, we use the Harvard referencing system. If you're not sure about that, you can Google it. There's guides on the ANU website that you can look at, which will help you in regard to doing the referencing. Okay, so let's get stuck into it. What is expected of this assignment? So you're expected to produce a professional business report. Okay, you probably will want to have a look at the video, and I do expect you to have a look at the lecture video on business writing. That is, at this moment, it's right at the top of the screen, on the Waddle screen on this course. Do go and watch that beforehand. Again, I'm going to expect you to have watched that before you do this assignment. In this video, I will mention a few differences between this and that video. That video is general advice on how to write a business report, but make sure you go watch it, because that's what you're supposed to do. Produce a professional business report. 1,650 words maximum, so absolute maximum. So there's no plus or minus 10%. And sorry, there's no plus 10%. It's 1,650 words. For those of you who feel look, to be honest, 1,650 words is not a lot. Most people should be able to write 3, 4, 5,000 words. So the difficulty is not going to be having too little words. It's going to be having too many words and having to cut down. But that's the requirement, 1,650 words. And your report is to focus on the communication issues that you see in the video, or you've been asked to watch talk about in the video. So it's really important that when I say that you know that it's communication issues. So you may watch the video and you may say there are issues with power or leadership or all sorts of other things, management structure. That's well and good. But remember, your focus is on communication. This is the communication subject. So if you want to talk about, hey, there's a problem with leadership, then talk about how that problem in leadership becomes a communication problem or communication issue. or discuss how communication issues may lead to a power problem, but don't talk mostly about power or communicate or power or leadership or negotiation or management structure or whatever it happens to be. Your primary focus is on communication issues. Now, you might say, but these other things are important. Remember, if you're producing a business report and and somebody calls you in and says, what's our problem? You might say, look, your problem in your, do we have a problem with, I don't know, communication? And you say, well, you got a problem with leadership. You've got a problem in all these other things. They're going to say, we didn't pay you for that. We paid you to tell us about communication. You might say, hey, you have a problem with communication and it's caused by your leadership. And this is what your leadership is doing that's causing this particular communication problem. Or this, this is that's fine. That's what you should do. But don't talk all about leadership or talk all about power when the focus is about communication. So one of the things you want to do as you watch this video is you want to work out what are the communication issues? What causes the communication issues? What problems may the communication issues lead to? Now again, this is why you want to have read your notes, watch the lectures beforehand before you come to the video. Okay, now that you know that, let's move on to the format. So the format, as I said before, 1650 words. Follow the format in your course outline, the lecture notes, and also in the additional information section. I just want to say now, there is no need for a literature review. For some reports, and certainly for reports in the past, they've used literature. There's no need for a literature review at all. You may want to have a short scope or methods section, or what I would advise you do is you might have that straight after the introduction, or you may even sort of put it as kind of in that beginning section. But again, if you are going to do a short scope or method section, it's short. It's not going to be a long section. Now, in the business writing lecture on Waddle, I basically said, that was the general guideline as to the reporting, a good report structure. So it's the same thing I'm saying here. The structure that you have for your report, it's up to you to work out, the best structure that you want. But these are general guides as to what we would recommend you do. That's not to say you can't go well without them or in doing something different, but if you do something different, it needs to work well, right? It needs to be logical, and it needs to be obvious to the reader, hey, you're structured in this way because of the information you're presenting is this particular way, and it works well. Now, the most important thing is the content. So format and structure, I'm going to assume you can read and follow and do what you're told through all these guides. Nothing difficult there. The content is the important part. What are you saying in terms of, the communication issues and how you're reporting it and how you're discussing it. This is where the bulk of the marks are going to be. Okay, so what you need to know is that good reports and good assignments show signs of strong critical analysis. The better the critical analysis, the better it is. Now, what I want to do is give you an idea of how we grade things. Okay, when it comes to content, we grade things by showing in these three general things. The first is sort of the bottom level is sort of description or common sense sort of answers. So look at when you've sort of put some ideas together with regard to your assignment. Look at your answer. Now, if your answer is common sense, if your answer is very descriptive, if I gave the assignment to somebody else and I said, here's your structure, you have never done this subject, you're just another ANU student studying other stuff, write a report on the communication issues. If they come up to a very similar answer to you, then expect a fail, or at best a very low level scraping pass. Right? The reason for that is there's no value add. As I said, if I can give this assignment to somebody who's not done this subject, and they can come up with a very similar answer to you, you haven't shown any learning from this subject at all. You've just shown that you know common sense. So if that's your answer, right? If your answer is common sense, if your answer is a description, this is what happened in this video. It shows signs of this communication problem, this communication problem. If it's at that level, then expect a fail or expect only to just have a bare pass. Now, the next level is descriptive analysis. So descriptive analysis takes it a level beyond that level. The description and the common sense answer. So descriptive analysis, the most common form of descriptive analysis is where students look at the literature, look at academic journals, and remember in this assignment you're expected to look at a minimum of minimum of five academic journals. So let me make it clear: academic journals, not textbooks. Even though you should look at the textbook to start with, but five academic journals. And what students will do is, for example, they'll say, this happened in the video. It's bad communication. This is a sign of stereotyping and the fundamental attribution error reference. Right? The fundamental attribution error is this, and what happened in the video is a classic example, fundamental attribution error, and this is what you should do according to this particular journal. Right? This is what a lot of you will do for a lot of your assignments. You look at the literature and you say, this is an example of this, and this is what the literature says about that. Right? Basically, you're showing a sign of what we call descriptive analysis. You're sticking a label on something. This thing happened. I'm using the label fundamental attribution error and giving you a reference. That's what we would define as descriptive analysis. Or, I can show you that this is an example of fundamental attribution error, and the journal paper tells us this is what we should do, right? You're showing that there is some analysis. You're drawing from the literature a little bit, but you're not really, doing a lot with the literature. You're telling me what the literature already tells me, right? So if I read the literature, I would come up with the exact same conclusion without doing much thought, right? That will get you a credit. Maybe if you do it very well and you're structured and everything's written very well, you might scrape your distinction. Now, critical analysis is where you want to be. Critical analysis is the stuff that gets you to the high distinction, right? Now, critical analysis, what does critical analysis involve? Well, it involves a few things. Firstly, it involves good research, right? You've done a lot of research into the potential topical areas regarding the communication issues that you see, right? It also requires you to think carefully, yeah? Think very carefully about what's being said, and then to consider the different viewpoints. Now, if you look at the literature, so what a lot of you will do is sort of say, okay, let me take a step back. With critical thinking, you want to be asking the question, why? Why are people doing what they're doing? Why do these communication issues exist? Do they exist because of something else? So think about you having a fight with your friend. When you have a fight with your friend, you always feel that you're right and they're wrong. But I'm sure they think they're right and you're wrong. So why do they think they're right? Why do they think you're wrong? Are they just being unreasonable? Probably not. There are probably other things going on behind. Maybe they have a different worldview, right? Maybe they have, they are emphasizing a different point. Sometimes you find that when you're having an argument with a friend, you're actually arguing two sides of the same coin, so to speak. Right? What that means is, there are two different viewpoints. They're both quite correct, and you're emphasizing one, they're emphasizing another. But if you were to take a step back, you would see both sides and say, well, they both have some validity. Yeah. So when you want to get to that high levels of critical analysis, you need to do these things. So you're going to look at the literature, and they're going to say, certain arguments. They may not always be true, right? So think about why. Think about, are there different perspectives to this, right? Sometimes you'll find two bits of literature which totally disagree with each other. So I'll give you a classic example within management. So there's one stream of management which says this: you need to treat your people well, and they will work hard for you. Money is important, but not really that important at all. Right? That's what most people say, and that's probably what you're familiar with. You need a bit of money, but really it's about treating people well. It's about having a good job, which is exciting and interesting, not so much about the money. And that's very true. But in actual fact, there's a lot of research that also says, money is really important, and you need to pay people significant money. And and there are studies that show when you pay people more, right, they work harder. So which one is it? Is it that they need money? Or that this other thing which basically says only need a basic level of money? How do we reconcile these two particular things? Now, there are other theories that actually explain how you reconcile these two sort of conflicting arguments, right? Those sorts of arguments are what signs of critical analysis, right? So we go back to here and we look at critical analysis, high distinction sort of range. That's what you want to be looking at. Why, not just what are the communication issues are, why do they occur? Are there different perspectives on or different arguments for why they may occur, conflicting arguments? And how do we reconcile these different things? Right. In terms of conclusions and recommendations, again, you start to look at the fact that there may be recommendations you have, but they may not be very simple recommendations. Right. Sometimes solving a problem is not actually just a simple matter of do this, do this, do this, do this, or even implementing your solution may not be easy. So they're the things you want to be talking about. Okay, so you need to do good research, at least 5 articles. My recommendation, some students will say, well, how do I find these? My recommendations is, in some of the lecture slides, there's lists of reference lists. Go have a look at them. In your textbook, there are references. Go look at them. And if you are, once you've done that, you may want to go look at Google Scholar to also, look at that website or look at that search engine for academic references you can look at. My statement when you do these assignment is it's going to be an iterative process. What that means is you're going to have to do it more than just once. So what I mean by that is you're probably going to read your notes and then watch your video, and then you're probably going to have to go back and read your notes, and then you may need to watch the video again, and then you might need to go back and read the notes, and then you're going to watch your video again. Say too, you may watch the video and then go look at the academic journals, and then you may come back to watch the video again and look at the academic journals again, and so forth and so forth and so forth. You're going to do these sorts of things. And the reason for that is when you first read your notes, when you first look at the video, you may say, oh, these are the issues, and this is how I think we solve it. But then when you go and look at the articles and the textbook, you might sort of say, wait a second, it's not so simple because I've got other articles or things which suggest it might be a different issue or a different perspectives on the same issue. Let me go and watch the video again, have a look at this other perspective. Oh, okay, it could be that. Now let me go look at what the research says and see what that says about it. And then in that process, you might actually found that the communication issues you thought were the actual issues at the beginning are not the actual issues. Right? They're not the real key issues that you want to be focusing on. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say you have a staff member who's not working well. Initially you might say, oh, the reason why they're not working well is because they're just lazy. And they're not motivated. So you may think it's a problem of motivation. But if you ask questions, you might find it's not really a motivation issue. It's now they're actually highly motivated, but there are other things around them. Maybe the performance structure, the bonuses that you give them don't motivate them properly. So it's not so much motivation, it's more about bonus structures. Or you might find there are things happening in their home life that are making it difficult for them to work harder. So it's not that they're being lazy or even the bonus structure, it's that there are other things outside of work which are affecting their work, right? So what you want to be doing is asking these questions. Now you have a very short video, a few minute video, so there's only limited information, but you want to be looking at that video from different perspectives and from different thought processes. That's going to all help you get a higher level of analysis into your report. Okay, so some last things that you want to do. So firstly is plan your assignment. Right? Before you really start writing, plan the structure of your assignment. Oftentimes, if you don't plan, you just start writing, your assignment appears all over the place. As I've said in the business writing lecture, you want to write it all before you come back to write the introduction and the executive summary. Right? Plan exactly what you're going to say at different points. What's my introduction going to say? What's the main points that I'm going to raise in my body, my conclusion? Draft that all out, put a whole skeleton together, right? Come back to it, write that up in one day. The next day, go watch the video, go look through your notes again, see whether your plan matches that, and I don't mean your plan matches that as your plan should match that, even though that's important, but see whether you still agree with that's the analysis or those are the conclusions you want to draw. Do it over a few days, so don't do it in one hit. When you're writing, write many drafts. Right, I would say you want to get a high mark, at least 3 drafts, if not 5, 6 more, or even more. right? I've seen people who write 10 and 15 drafts. So write as many drafts as you can, use as much time as you can to put it to invest in your answer. Proofread your assignment, right? Make sure that the spelling is right, the grammar is right. If you're not sure, if you're not strong on this, make sure you go and get help from somebody else who may have stronger grammar or stronger spelling, and you does have writing workshops and writing academic skills places where you can go for help. Find out about that if you need to. Get started early, because those ANU help areas do take time. They often can be booked out if you don't go in quickly, or they do take time to make a booking, so get in on that early. One of the things I do want to just make a mention, because I know some of you may ask, is can you use bullet points in your report? Yes, you can, but your assignment should not be just filled with bullet points. Okay. In the business writing lecture, I do make mention of certain places where bullet points may be helpful. Finally, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, right? Get somebody else to read your assignment, somebody that's not doing this subject, right? And see whether they draw the same understandings from your paragraphs and your conclusions. Get somebody to watch the video and then get them to read your report and get them to see what they think, whether it's true or not. And get these people are not people who are just looking at it generally. You want people who are smart, intelligent, who think carefully, and who are not necessarily doing this subject. And the reason for that, normally I would say yes, but remember, you don't want people doing this subject, because there's a chance that they may end up, especially if they don't have much time, somehow taking some of your work, copying it, and then you have potential plagiarism issues down the track. There's one last thing I just want to mention now that I come to talk about plagiarism, and that is in the Turnitin, when you submit for Turnitin, some students have sort of said, what percentage is a problem? And my answer is there is no percentage that is a problem. You could write 1% of your assignment. If you copy somebody else's assignment and 1% of it is copied, that is potential plagiarism. By the same token, you can have 99% of your assignment the same. So let's just say you took somebody else's assignment, you copied the whole thing, but right at the end of the assignment, you put a reference. You said, reference David Cheng's assignment from somewhere else, right? What we will do with that is we will probably give you maybe 0 or 1, right? But you would not be in trouble for plagiarism. You'd get 0 or 1 because it's not you. What we would say is, look, we can see that you have added no value in terms of this report. It's basically somebody else's report, but you will not be called in for plagiarism because you've referenced the actual source. Okay, so in terms of percentage, there is no percentage, but make sure, as I said before, if it's your work, great, that's fine. If it's somebody else's work, if it's somebody else's sentences, please reference them. One other thing is, as a tip, you don't want to be using lots of quotes from journals or from other sources, right? Now, the reason for that is this: every time you use a quote, it's not your work. You're basically saying so-and-so said something. Now, that's okay if the exact wording that a person uses is really, really important, like the absolute exact words, right? But for the most part, that's not really going to happen. You can paraphrase somebody else's work and get the same basic meaning, and obviously cite them in your references. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this particular video. So going right back to the beginning, make sure you've obviously gone through all the notes. Look through all the notes carefully also, as well, when you've finished your assignment, to make sure your format is correct. You've done things which are towards critical analysis, because you want those higher marks, and that will all put you in good stead. I'll finish this video off for now, and I wish you all the best of luck in your assignment.